Okay, hello. Today we are talking about percent proportions. So you should be going to page 14 in your notes. We're going to talk about, you've already learned about proportions. Most of you have passed that quiz. So really all we're talking about is how to apply proportions in a percent problem. Now, I need you to understand something. We expect you to use this pattern or the next one, the percent equation, in solving all percent problems, okay? And you'll determine which one's best, and we may show you times when we expect you just to use that. And on this lesson, that's what you're going to apply. The entire time, you need to have the percent proportion. If you don't receive credit. You're showing in this lesson, you know how to use a percent proportion in percent problems. So let's review. We said that we're always going to write that we're going to always have a proportion. The part over the whole equals a percent over 100. And again, you need to practice. Those of you that practice what I'm about to tell you are going to be the ones that make the fewest mistakes. So that's my job, is to help you, protect you from making mistakes. So what I'm telling you right now is you're going to look and say, well, this is the is. It's attached to the word what, which means we're trying to find the part, right? That's what I told you was part is always. So if you look over here, the part, we don't know. So we're just going to call that P. Then we're going to look for the percent. And that's right there. So if we look, that's going to be our percent. So we're going to put 32 down here. And then the last thing we're looking for is our whole. That's always attached to the word of. So that means our whole is 58. And we look again and we know what we're doing. We're going to put the part. We don't know the part. We're trying to find that. We know that the whole is 58, so we put that down here. We always have a 100 on the bottom here. And we know that our percent is 32. We're going to do, let's just do something wild and crazy. We're going to solve for P. Now, if we look, P is being divided by 58. How do you undo division by 58? You multiply by 58. So you multiply both sides by 58. This should look a little familiar. So when we do that, we wind up with, we just got rid of the 58. So now what we have is P equals, now we can do some math here. 32 divided by 100 is 0.32 times 58. You're going to get the P equals 18.56. Now, by default, you're going to round to the nearest hundredth. If it tells you to round the nearest tenth, well, you'd have 18.6, right? But this is, we're just going to say then that 18.56 is 32% of 58. That's our answer. It asks us a question in sentence form. You need to answer it in sentence form. Okay? You need to show your work. You could have done the cross product equation. You could have said 100 times P equals 58 times 32. And if that's the easiest way for you to do it, go ahead, do that. Okay? Let's do it that way, this one. But remember, this is probably the one where we need to do it. Okay? Okay, so here we go. We're going to identify what we have. Again, we're going to circle things. We're going to say is always attached to the part. Well, there it is. It's attached to the part right there. Okay, so that's the part. We're going to say the of is always attached to the whole. There it is. This is our whole. And when we're looking for the percent, Oh, look, we don't know what the percent is. That's what the word what is. So we don't know that. We're going to put an X there. We know the whole is 40. And we know the part is 12. So now we go back to the fact that we always put part over whole. This is part over whole equals percent over 100. So we just put the 100 there. We know our part is 12, so we put that here. We know that our whole is 40, and we don't know our percent, so we put an X there. And now we're solving this. Now again, if you look, you should be able to see you could just multiply both sides by 100. But let's just go ahead and be wild and crazy, and let's go ahead and just do the cross product equation, if that's the one you're most convinced you want to use. What we care about is you can set up the proportion, and then you can use one of the three methods we've taught you to be able to solve this. So either you're going to use scale factor, or you're going to use solving for the variable, or you're going to use the cross product equation. Now what you're going to simplify is say, well, I have 1200 here because 12, right? And then you have equals 40x. So we're going to divide both sides by the 40 to get the x by itself. We wind up with that x equals 30. So our answer is 12 is 30% of 40. And that's what we have to look over here and say, oh, well, we realize this is what we got. We're figuring out 30%. And that's pretty much what you're trying to do. You're setting it up. Now look, this is when we're looking at the first one, we were looking for the part. Second, we're looking for the percent. Let's see what happens. This is what it looks like when we're trying to figure out the whole. Okay, because the of is attached to what number? Okay. Okay, and then what we have is the percent is 21%, and our part is 52.08. Okay, so this is our part, this is our percent, and this is our whole. So we're going to put those in. We don't know what this is, so we're going to call it W. We know the part is 52.08. And we know that our percent is 21. So now we just plug those in. So we say we know our part is 52.08. We don't know our whole, so we put that there. We know that our percent is 21. And we know that we always have the 100 over here. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to use that cross product equation. So we're going to come across. We'll have 5208. So there we go. We got 52.08 times 100 equals W times 21. If we simplify this first, we're going to get to that. That's 5,208 equals 21W. Because we can use commutative property to rewrite that. That means we're going to divide both sides by 21, which means W equals 248. So we look over here, and what we were needing to plug in was of what number. So we're really just rewriting this whole answer as 52.08 is 21% of 248. There we go. All we did was use set up the proportion. That's the most important thing here. Can you set up the proportion? And then can you solve it? All right, well, you do this one now. Let's see if you can set up the proportion. And then once you set up the proportion, can you solve it? Go. Don't forget to label your parts, whole and percent. Okay, that should be your proportion. You should have labeled the part, the percent, the whole, because you want to be careful, right? And so you want to do that. Now go ahead and solve your proportion. Okay, so you should have set up the proportion like that. Then from the proportion, you would have set up the proportion equation, the cross product equation. Then simplified and divided both sides by 100, and you get 108.54, which means your answer is 108.54 is 81% of 134. Okay, and some of you, if you're wanting to check, you should probably just write this out. This would be 108.54. Does that make sense? You're looking at it and saying, well, it should be smaller than 134 because 81 is smaller than 100, and it should be bigger than 81 because 134 is bigger than 100. So it should be proportional, right? So that answer makes sense. Here's our final answer for this. 108.54 of is 80%, 81% of 134. Okay, so go ahead, try these two. Go. Set up, label it, circle, label, part, whole, and percent. Set up the proportion, solve it. Go. Hit pause, go ahead and circle the parts, put them in their place, set up the proportion, and solve it. Good luck. Okay, so that should be your proportion, and then this should be your cross product equation. Okay, keep going. Okay, that's what your proportion should look like. Now you're just gonna solve, right? Go. You should have come out with the answer for these two. The first one, example 5, should have been 11.18 is 13% of 86, right? And then you should have come up with the second one that it's that 374.4 is 120% of 312. Okay, so I mean, what you're doing here, if you look, you've set up a proportion, you've done the cross product equation. I've shown you once where you could just solve for the variable, and you could have done that on either one of these two, okay? You could have done that, but when you're trying to find the whole, you're really better off to do the cross product equation. If you are that type of student that needs just one way to do it, you're better off to use the cross product equation every time because that way works every time. The other ways that we've talked about, scale factor doesn't work every time, not evenly, not cleanly. And using solving for the variable doesn't always work, especially if the variable's on the bottom. So now the question is, when you look at a story problem, can you figure out what is the part, what is the whole, and what is the percent? And can you figure out what the question is? So let's check. So right now what you're going to do is you're going to circle the part, the whole, the percent. You're going to label them. You're going to fill it into the box. You're going to set up the proportion for each one of these. Before you even solve, You're just going to do those steps. Circle and label and put them in the box. Set up your proportion. Okay, so hit pause and go. Okay, when I get done labeling, I can see that the 60 movies that you thought were good is the part, because there's the good and the bad. It says total, 80 movies total right here. So that tells me that's my whole. That's another word for whole. Okay? And then they tell me I'm looking for the percentage. So in both of these problems, we are looking for the percentage. Okay, set it up, solve it, bring it to class. Let's see how you do. Okay, good luck. Let's go. Take a break, look these over, set up your proportions. We'll go from here. Good luck.